So this is how it got delivered to me in the mail. To my surprise, they actually delivered it right to my front door. Just comes in a big old box, all taped up. So we'll grab a knife here, we'll get rid of some of this tape, and then we'll get into this. So when we first open her up here, first things first, you have a nice little instruction manual. From there, you have a couple plastic pieces that are wrapped up. Just some foam. And then the diesel heater itself. And then also another little box with, sounds like a bunch of goodies in there. So I'll take this box, we'll just get that out of the way here. So I'll see what's here. It looks like there's just a couple of plastic vents. So yeah, a couple plastic vents for your, I'm assuming your exhaust for this. Then we'll open up our little box of goodies here. See what comes inside this. So when you open up your box, you got all this stuff laid out. That looks like a exhaust muffler. A couple hose clamps. Believe that's the intake filter. And then here you have your exhaust for the hot air, as well as the exhaust. So this is the exhaust for your hot air. This is your air intake, and this is your exhaust out for the actual heater itself. So when I was looking at this on the pictures, it looked like there wasn't any clamps or anything like that for your power supply. So there is a power supply here with the fuse. I'll check to see if there's an actual fuse inside. There is. It's a 25 amp. But then it's just bare wires. So what I did is I went down to my local mechanic shop there, and I just picked up two little battery clamps that I'll be hooking up to this. So yeah, make sure you do your research there, and if you're going to be buying one of these, make sure you have something that you can actually connect this to. Along with this, we have a little remote control here. They went and they kind of hooked it up to a wire that's down inside the screen here. There we go. Takes a little getting after, but there you go, you can pull it right out. I don't know if that screen's supposed to come off or not, so be careful with that when you try to take your remote off. Here you can see a nice little gauge. It holds 5 liters of diesel. Little plastic cap on top. We'll see if there's a screen or not. Nope, just a empty open tank. And now we'll take just a second to read the little instruction manual here. This might be one of those things from China where it'll get the job done, but don't fully rely on these for perfectly straight answers. A lot of times it's a lot of broken English and stuff, so we'll kind of skim through this a little bit. And basically it's just for the initial startup and how to put everything together. They even show you a little picture of like the internal structure of the heater itself and the blower motor. So that's actually kind of nice that they have that. Okay, so we're trying to pull everything out of these bags. Here we got a couple of big hose clamps, a couple of smaller ones, and then some extra little bits of hardware. I don't really know what that's exactly for. I want to say that's for mounting it on the wall or something. Self-tapping screws with rubber washers. Alright, so underneath you have 2 ports here. Now let's go to the instruction manual. Let's see, we're facing this way. So this is your exhaust. And then this one is your intake. So your fresh air intake and then your hot exhaust. There is a little slot here out the back. I don't know if we can bend it over that much or not. If it's for the air intake, we definitely can. But for the exhaust, it was pretty hard. That's about an inch of straight pipe here, and this side's about an inch and a quarter. So that will not bend at all. Where this stuff here, it's kind of like dryer vent looking hose, where you get all these ribs you can bend around everything there. So with a little Phillips screwdriver, we should be able to take this. It looks like it's supposed to just bend right into place. I don't know if this expands at all though. That's about all you're going to get out of her. So this might be a bit of a struggle. I wonder if I can come in from this side. If I do, that'll work. The only thing is, inside we have a fuel line. But if we just kind of slightly push it out of the way, we can slide this down and in. Oh, it's not quite long enough. Okay, so with a bit of a skinnier, longer screwdriver, you're actually able to get in here and get this on. So now with that hose clamp on, we'll take our little bit of air intake, slide through this little cutout, and I guess that's on. Then we have our little filter. Twist that in. So that actually does twist in, but we need our little hose clamp. Grab our intake filter. And there we go. Now we can use our short little screwdriver. There. That's installed. Now we have to do our exhaust. This feels just very, very stiff. The thing that might not work so great is when you put this in and you run it out. I don't know how well we'll be able to bend this down so it actually clears the legs here, but we'll give it a go and I'll see which way they kind of tell you to run it out. They don't really say. Well, the fill cap's on this side, so maybe we'll run it out that way. I'll grab, we'll just go like this. Grab that, put that on there. Using our small little screwdriver. See if we can get in here. Well, I got that installed, and now I'm going to see if I can bend this over pretty well without breaking it. I just don't trust this pipe, and if it breaks, you can buy new ones through Amazon, but what might end up happening is you might crack it right on this edge too, and if that happens and this is on the inside of wherever it is that you're at, you'll have exhaust spewing out constantly. So now we have that there. Let's see how well it sits. I mean, it works, but it's touching the table here, so that might be an issue. Another reason why I bought this one, the real wide one, is because the other ones are much taller. The clearance on the bottom is the same, but then the legs are also only about 4 to 6 inches, and it looks like it'd be very top heavy and tip over. Where this one, you can see like it's, like you're not gonna tip this over. But back to this exhaust. Now that we have this out over there, I'm gonna grab this little muffler, and I believe with this muffler there is a little drain on the one side, so if there's any condensation in it, it drains out kind of the bottom, and you're supposed to point it down. So I'll come close to the camera here for you. So on the top, it's nice and flat, squished together here. But on the bottom, you can see right here, that allows any condensation to come out. So when you install this, from what I've been reading and seeing online, is that you want to install it where that little thing is on the bottom. That way, any condensation stuff will just drip out the bottom instead of kind of steaming out the top and creating a bunch of back pressure. And I don't know if that would split this or not, but yeah, either way, we'll install this with this pointing down. And yeah, pretty straightforward. Put her in, put your hose clamp on, take this, put her in there. I don't think there's a left or a right. Looks pretty universal. Maybe there is. No, my exhaust is just buggered up. So the exhaust hose is actually kind of bent on this one. There we go. You just gotta convince it that it wants to go home. And then for now, what I'll do, I always have my Leatherman on me. So with this, I can always just loosen off the hose clamp and spin it around the way that it kind of wants to line up. But for right now, for argument's sake, we'll just kind of get her somewhat tight. Maybe I'll bend this pipe up a little bit so then we can kind of get it somewhat situated. However, I think this is how I'll normally run it, because with this I'll usually use it in most likely my ice fishing tents. So this will be underneath the floor kind of a deal anyways. Well, I'll be sitting outside with the exhaust coming into the tent. So maybe what I'll do is I'll see if I can just bend this up without breaking anything and keeping this exhaust away from your air intake. If this exhaust is too close to your air intake, all you're going to be doing is circulating exhaust. And with that, you'll end up sucking in a bunch of exhaust, and this might not run all that great. Or you could potentially just be pushing exhaust inside your tent or your building, wherever it is that you're using this to heat up. But we'll kind of bend this up like that, and then I'm wanting to bend it kind of over too so it lays somewhat straight. It's just not wanting to cooperate. But oh well, we'll leave it like that for now, and that's just the way it is. That way what'll happen is that won't be directly on the ground, and it'll also give this that little it'll also give this a spot to vent out, so you're not sitting there spewing that out onto the ground. I got my little buddy here with me, trying to help me out. Hey, my friend. So I guess now all that's kind of left that we can really do inside is to hook up our little vent system. So with this, I'll unwrap a little bit of it, or expand it. There's another one that just doesn't seem to want to expand. I'll make all that good enough before it ends up breaking on me. And just like the other stuff, put that on here with your hose clamp. It's a little tight, but we made her. There we go. We got our air exhaust on. And after I was pulling on it, it doesn't seem to be, like, you don't get that much. It expands a little bit, but boy, not a whole lot. Now this, I'm assuming, just kind of clamps into place. Yeah, and for a more permanent setup, if this was going to be installed into a wall, it looks like it comes with a couple of self-tappers, and on the back here, there's 3 little holes that you would pretty well cut something out with. You use a hole saw, mount this up to it, screw it in, and then install this outer piece. But for us, what we're going to be using it for is just inside the tent, and this is going to be basically ran either underneath the skirt, or there's an actual opening in one of my tents that we can use. So then, at least this way too, it is somewhat directional. It spins a little bit in here, probably just some rough edges and stuff that you have to kind of scrape up. But for our case, we'll just grab a hose clamp, put her on, and yeah, if we want to change the directions, maybe we'll just leave this hose clamp where it's slightly loose. Or like I said, I always have my Leatherman with me, so we can always just adjust it while we're out in the field. So I have this hose clamp on here fairly tight now. And yeah, you can actually grab this vent and you can spin it, you know, pretty freely. It's not that bad. So yeah, we got that installed. There's all this other stuff. I'm pretty sure this is for mounting it. Like if you're doing this, giving this a permanent mount on walls. All these other little bits of loose ends, I don't really know. Maybe it's extra hardware in case something breaks on the inside. I'm sure if I read more of the instruction manual, it'd tell me, but I'll leave that up to you guys. We have our little remote control. We have our panel, and supposedly this thing also has an app that you can use. But for me, I mean, I'm pretty old school. I don't even know if I'll really use the remote all that much. It'll be mainly off this screen. Also, one thing I might do as an add-on is these legs. They have 2 holes drilled on each side. I might take like a 2x4 and mount this onto 2 2x4s as legs kind of thing, if the 2x4s are sitting flat. That way it'll pick this up just that little extra, you know, 1 3/4 off the ground. And yeah, that way this exhaust won't be directly touching the ground, because I'm pretty sure that'll get up to a couple hundred Fahrenheit, and if there's anything flammable underneath there, you know, you might run the risk of lighting it on fire. So that all being said, I think what we'll do is we'll take this outside. I might just put it directly on the ground and see if it runs just on the ground itself, by itself. And one more thing we gotta do is I gotta grab my little clamps and install them onto this here. This is one thing that kind of bugs me about it, is that it doesn't really say on the website or on Amazon that it doesn't come with a power supply. It shows a picture of this, but doesn't show really the ends. So, you know, double check, make sure that when you buy these, you also buy a set of alligator clips or a little 12-volt plug for a cigarette lighter kind of thing. And yeah, but anyways, we'll fix that up. We'll clamp on 2 little alligator clamps. Then we'll go outside and we'll test this with a pretty heavy duty battery. Alright, so we're outside here now with the old diesel heater. I have it set up on this bucket just for right now, just so we can kind of get this portion filmed. Where the exhaust is, it runs in between these buckets, so it's not going to touch and melt or anything, but is it definitely not how I'd want to have it set up to run for a long time. You'd end up just melting the buckets or it would tip over. So here we got our positive and negative clamps on. Goes to our fuse and then into the machine. And then for power supply, I got a pretty hefty deep cell commercial battery here. So that should be enough amp hours on there to run it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up to the battery here, and we'll see if we can get this thing to turn on. So according to the manual, if you turn this on, if you click and hold it for I think 7 seconds, it'll go into like an auto prime. So we'll see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That didn't do it. When I clicked that power button, it just said start heating. So right now I can hear the fan kind of kicking on, but nothing going on with the fuel pump. So I'm going to turn this off.
Stop heating. Thanks for using. I wish you a safe journey.
I mean, it's one of these buttons here I'll click on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Stop heating. Thanks for using. I wish you a safe journey.
The instructions on this thing, they were in Chinese, then they kind of got translated into English, and it's for like all 6 models or whatever it is that they have. So this one isn't on these instruction manuals. It's telling me like the up and down buttons. This I got left and right. Also the remote, plus and minus. So I wonder if this actually works or not.
Stop. Thanks for using. I wish you a safe journey.
I clicked it on and it said I turned it off.
Start heating.
So I can turn it on, but that's going to take forever to prime it. But maybe what I'll do is I'll run back to the manual here and see if I can figure this out. Press the on-off key more than 3 seconds to change the run mode for the heater. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I put it in manual mode instead of the temperature. So with the manual mode, it just has like a power setting. It's 1 through 10. In automatic mode, it kind of goes to a thermostat that's run through this. But in order to have that, this has to be actually inside of something, and I don't like that whatsoever. Just because of the way the exhaust is set up, it's real thin, flimsy stuff, and I would really worry about it either cracking or falling off. There's just one real simple hose clamp holding it on there, so I really don't like that. So I'm going to keep this set onto manual. Adjust output level in manual mode, using up and down. So right now it's set at 10. Execute independent fuel pumping when the controller is in the off status. 1, 2. Well, you can hear the clicking. I don't know if that's from me pushing that button. We'll see if this thing fires up or not. So that clicking, that's the fuel pump trying to draw diesel in there. I only got about a liter in here. With my hand on the end of the pipe here, I can feel cold air coming out. And we'll see if this exhaust starts to smoke at all or anything. But for now, I think we'll just leave it and let it do its thing. So I can hear the flame going in there. The exhaust is nice and hot. I'm just waiting to feel any heat coming out of here yet. So far what this thing was telling me, according to the instructions, that you're supposed to pre-prime this pump. But so far for me, the only thing I've done is just turn it on. And you can see some of the exhaust starting to come out now. We're starting to get a little bit of warm air on the end here. And I've gone through this screen a couple of times looking at stuff, but everything is really, well, it doesn't make any sense. You know, there's a bunch of letters and numbers and stuff. So right now I figured out how to turn it on, how to change it to manual mode, and then adjust it up and down from level 1 to level 10. And right now I just have it at level 10, and it seems to be working. And also have lots of hot air coming out of this now. Oh. Like anything else, when you first fire it up, you're probably going to want to do this outside because there is some smells to this during the manufacturing process. You know, there's a bunch of cutting oils and stuff like that that are in it. And this way here just kind of blows everything out, burns everything off. And then I bet you after running this for about an hour or so, you'd be fine to run it. Have this vented inside. And so far, like, this thing is putting out a lot of air. Like it does a phenomenal job of actually warming this up. While you're outside too, it keeps your hands nice and warm. So I'm thinking like this thing here, for what I'm going to be using it for is mainly possibly going to be like the ice fishing tent. in the future when I have like you know, a little garage or something like that. It would work great for that. You know, the pros and cons to this thing. The pros is that you can use it for a long time with a little bit of fuel, and you know, it is really portable. The cons is, you know, you need a power supply for it. A battery will work for a day. If you want to use 12 volt, if they get an adapter for that, or I guess say 120 volt, you need the adapter to bring it down to 12. As you can hear, it is kind of loud. The exhaust gets extremely hot. I can already see it discoloring. When you vent the exhaust outside, you have to go through some sort of fireproofing wall if you have this inside. You know, like, overall there is a lot of good and bad things, but when we're all done here, we'll go back inside after we get all wrapped up, and we'll go through kind of the majority of them, and we'll also get your guys' opinion on this type of a setup as well. And right now, like, you know, if I was actually inside my ice fishing tent, with the amount of heat that's coming off of here and how strong that fan is, I don't think it would take very long at all to actually heat it up. Maybe what I'll do is I'll grab the camera and I'll put it at the end here. You can hear it just whistling out of here. So as you can see, it's like a little mini furnace. Like, it is really nice, and it's a simple little setup. And you got your battery with your clamps on it, air intake far enough away from the exhaust that it's not sucking exhaust in to push it through your little air outtake there. You can see that exhaust is discoloring. I don't even want to touch it. I know it's gonna be hot. Here, that's really hot. And I know I've seen some people where they've burnt themselves really bad off that exhaust. So I mean, it's not exactly ideal for that. Plus, it's so short, you need to have this thing set up on top of something. But we'll let this run for a little bit. Maybe what we'll do is we'll point this down. We'll see if it melts any snow right here. You can see it's moving some of the grasses and stuff. So I mean, you know, the fan works really well, and it's on 10. If you slow this thing down to like a 2 or a 3, it's enough to heat up like a real small enclosed area, like an ice fishing tent, and then it also quiets it down by quite a bit too, instead of this constant real loud tick. It gets nice and quiet. So you can see on 2, still slowing down. It's still blowing out pretty good air. Like, even from here you can see it's moving this grass from up top. It's still nice and warm, and now it's just a slow little click. But supposedly with your power, it'll run like a day, day and a half or so, and then you have to charge up the battery, of course. But yeah, we'll see here. We're gonna let her go for a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna shut her all down, and then we'll go back inside, and we'll run through all the pros and cons and everything like that, and we'll wrap this up. So one thing I haven't really tested yet is a little remote control. So we'll see what happens here. And I go up.
Stop heating.
Oh, it said stop eating. Well, I clicked the up button and I turned it off. So, yeah, maybe the remote isn't the greatest. Maybe the buttons are all kind of closely knit together. Trying to turn it back on.
Start heating.
There we go. Start heating, but it's on auto. There we go. Switch it over to manual. And it should turn back on. We'll see, but yeah. This remote. Well, now it's working. Well, if I back up a little bit. Well, the remote seems to be working now, so I don't know. The remote works half the time, I guess. I wouldn't want to rely on it, but it does work. Alrighty guys, so we're back inside from trying out the old heater there. And you know, for how cheap that thing is, I think it's worth it. You know, I believe it was $160 or $180. I can't quite remember. I'll leave a little Amazon link in the description below for you that you can click on and check out if you want. You know, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and different configurations. Mainly for Vevor, there's a 5 kilowatt, 8 kilowatt. Then there's also the tall skinny one, or that short and fat one like I got. There's also a bunch of other name brands out there. Basically, it seems like it's all the same one, just a different sticker slapped on the side of it. But you know, with anything else, there's pros and cons. Some of the pros and cons for this one, pros, it's very maneuverable. You can put it pretty well anywhere. As long as you set it up outside, you can buy extra duct lengths, like dryer ducting. I've seen some people have like 20-foot hoses on theirs, and so you can stretch it way out. And really, if you have like a splitter or something like that too, I can't really see an issue on heating up 2 separate rooms, kind of a thing, if you had it all set up right. You know, it runs a very long time on diesel. That's another good pro. Another pro too, no matter where you take it, pretty well almost anywhere in the world, you're gonna find diesel. So it doesn't really matter where you go. If you have that and you need heat, you're gonna find a fuel source for it. I couldn't see anything on the manual itself or other videos, but I'm betting that you should be able to run kerosene through that as well. I have heaters at work and stuff like that that are kerosene and diesel, and it doesn't matter if you mix them up. The cons, however, though, setting everything up could be an issue. If you're traveling long ways with it, it's not like my, say, Big Buddy heater, where it's a propane heater, where I can just grab it, throw it into my sleigh, pull it behind my sled, get out to where I'm going, knock the snow off, hook up the propane, and go. With this, you have all your exhaust hose on there, your intake hose, your vent, and in order for me to, say, take it into one of these remote lakes that I go and fish at, I'd have to pretty well take everything off, package it all up, try not to get any snow into the intake or the exhaust kind of thing, and it would be a bit of a pain that way. Also, with the con is that you need a power supply, whether it's a big heavy battery, a power bank, a plug-in, something of that sort. So I mean, if you had like a small little suitcase generator, it would work fine. But again, that's one more thing that you have to pack around. Another con with that, and it's not very common, but it's common enough where I've heard of some people running it quite a bit, but then it only lasts them like a year or two. And money wise, it's not that big of a deal, but to me, it seems like a lot of waste. If you're gonna be running something for, say 2 years, and you're gonna take that entire thing and throw it away. What I've heard of some people doing is every time they replace one, they keep the old one, and by the time they go to replace it, like the third or fourth time, they have enough spare parts from all the other ones that they're basically able to rebuild a brand new one for essentially kind of free. But that's if you're kind of savvy with that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, in the end, the thing, it's less than $200. Uh, it lasts you hours on a tank of fuel. And as long as you have like a good battery, it'll last you. I think somebody said it was like a day or 2 days that you could get out of one battery, and that also depends if you're running it on real low or real high. One con that I forgot to mention is that there is not an oxygen sensor on there. So if you want to run it where you're in the Celsius and Fahrenheit, the temperature control mode, where once it comes up to temp, it kind of shuts off, and then once it comes down, it turns back on. The controller itself has to be inside. So you'll either have to rewire it to the inside or actually have that heater inside, kind of like a furnace is in your house. The problem I see with that, though, is that it's all real cheapo, China-made stuff, and I can't guarantee that that exhaust isn't going to, 1, break, 2, come off, or 3, have a little leak. And if that's the case and you're inside a small enclosed area, like, something like my office, if this was a shed outside, it wouldn't take very long for that CO2 to build up. And if you don't have a carbon monoxide detector, they could be an actual fatal mistake, and you could pass away from carbon monoxide exposure. So with that being said, you got to be very careful. Plus, rerouting your exhaust outside. I've seen some people do some pretty scary stuff where they've just kind of drilled a hole and said, yeah, as long as it doesn't move up and down like ½ inch or side to side, we won't burn the house down. And they just run it. But yeah, I've seen one guy there, he just barely touched that exhaust, and it gave him really, really bad burns on his finger. So it definitely gets hot, like several hundred degrees Fahrenheit hot. But yeah, I think as long as you're smart with it, and as long as you use it properly, and do everything right and do everything by the book, you shouldn't have a problem with it. And if I was going to use it here at the house to warm up like a guest cabin or a shed or a car shelter or something like that, I wouldn't think twice about installing one kind of permanently there. But yeah, there's your test and review on the Vevor 8 kilowatt portable diesel heater. If you guys get any value out of this, hit the like in the bottom. Let me know how your heater has run for you, or if you're one of those guys that you get 6 months to a year out of it. And yeah, let me know if they're actually worth keeping around, and potentially installing it properly to heat up like a shed or something like that. Anyways, guys, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.